Okay, so we are going to talk about this objective, outline the main evolutionary events of the Cenozoic era. And the key word, the big one to remember here, is human evolution. Um, and within that, there's some other key terms to help you remember what's going on in this era, which are dinosaur extinction, the age of mammals, and then human evolution to today. So the Cenozoic era is the most recent geologic era. Scientists studying the history of our Earth and the universe, they do this, they organize it by using a timeline broken up into 6 different eras. And the Cenozoic era is the era we are in now. And it started about 66 million years ago. And so again, the key word to remember with the Cenozoic era is, one of the key words is mammals. And the key mammal is us, humans. So the main evolutionary events of the Cenozoic era were first, extinction of the dinosaurs. Second, the rise and proliferation and diversification of mammals. And third, human evolution. So the Cenozoic era is called the Age of Mammals sometimes because of the at the beginning, with the extinction of many groups of giant predators and dinosaurs, this allowed smaller species and smaller mammals to thrive and diversify because their big predators no longer existed. At the beginning of the Cenozoic era, there was also some big changes in climate and geology of the Earth that allowed for some other significant events to occur, such as ice ages and land bridges that led to migrations, and that affected evolution of species. So like I said, the Cenozoic era spans from about 66 million years ago to present day, and it is further broken down into 3 time periods. So the Paleogene, which is 65 million years ago to 23 million years ago, the Neogene, which is 23 million years ago to about 2.6 million years ago, and the Quaternary period, which is 2.5 million years or 2.6 million years ago to present day. So let's kind of touch on each of these key evolutionary events, with the first being dinosaur extinction. So this was the event that marked the end of the Mesozoic era and the beginning of the Cenozoic era. Then the most common theory was that a massive asteroid or comet hit the Earth 66 million years ago, wiping out dinosaurs, either from the initial impact or from the resulting effects, which were the creation of a giant cloud of dust that blocked out the sun. So the sun was blocked by this giant cloud of dust resulting from the asteroid strike, and that led to a huge shift in climate on Earth because less sunlight led to cooling of the Earth relatively, and less sunlight meant less photosynthesis capabilities for many plankton and plants on Earth. So the strike of the asteroid plus this change in climate, leading to less plant life, so less food sources, caused a lot of species to die off. So this early time in the Cenozoic era, the Earth went pretty like cold and quiet and kind of empty of life, relatively speaking. And that leads us to the Age of Mammals. So kind of in this quiet period after the dinosaurs and lots of large predators were gone, small mammals finally had their chance to evolve and crawl out of their little hiding places. And there began to be much more diversity of mammals, such as carnivores and insectivores, and bird species were diversifying and so on. And eventually the Earth warmed back up after the cooling it had experienced, and forests started to flourish all over the Earth, and all the way up to the like North and South Pole. And throughout this time period, one key thing that happened with the proliferation of forests was the earliest primate-like species evolved, and that was about 50 to 55 million years ago. And from this early primate-like species down the line came the evolution of humans. So from the very earliest hominids, modern humans evolved much later in about the last 4 million years of the Cenozoic era. So what happened to make this possible? So after the shift from the cooling period in the climate, and then the earth warmed back up and forests started to flourish, later on the climate started to change again, and there was more evolution of grasslands. So these early species, these primate-like species, started moving out of trees and evolving to live life in grasslands. So chimpanzees are humans' most common ancestor or common species on Earth. And about 13 million years ago, these creatures lived high in the trees, and that's where they found their primary food sources. But as the climate began to shift and grasslands began to spread, there were fewer trees, like places in the African savanna, which we know is a lot of where our evolutionary history started. So the loss of forests meant there was less food sources for chimpanzees and more competition for the food that was still in the trees in the forests. So these species started to evolve to live in grasslands. And one advantageous trait that started to be naturally selected for was the ability to stand up with your head above the grasses to be able to see predators. And so this key piece led to the evolution of early hominids to move from 4 legs to 2 legs. So this adaptation of being able to walk on 2 legs was evolutionarily and advantageous. And so that was a big significant shift from 4 legs to 2 legs. So when these early hominids, when these early humans began walking on 2 legs, this freed up their hands. This at this point, human evolution really began to flourish. And so this was about 4 million years ago. These early hominids, these like proto-human species, began to master the use of their hands and fingers and began to be able to use tools. So the very first instance of this, they believe, was sharpening rocks to be able to use as tools. And along with this, some early hominid species, alongside being able to manipulate tools, they also learned to manipulate fire. And in this age is called the Stone Age. And one of the marks of the early Stone Age was that these early human species cooked their food. And this was significant in the Stone Age. The ability to cook food was significant because it gave them more calories, and more calories meant that their brains could develop and grow larger. And moving into the modern day, some evolutionary changes kept occurring as brains grew larger and capabilities advanced, and early humans learned to make more complex sounds and communicate, and they began to exchange information. And with this exchange of information and forming groups, they were able to cooperate more, bond, form different cultural groups and communities. And that's more of the mark of the modern day human.